We've come a long way since the emergence of brands. What were once inanimate corporations are now interactive personas. But how does the new level of brand personification meet customers in Web3? Welcome back to Dentsu in our series, Roads to the Metaverse. Brands today are part of popular culture, engaging with us in social feeds and generating headlines. But it wasn't always this way. Let's take a look back at how far brands have come in just the last few decades. As brands continue to evolve to more human-like forms, it begs the question, how can brands come to life in the metaverse? Here to dig into this topic is Dentsu's Chief Strategy Officer, Dirk Herbert. Dirk, let's start with how brands have evolved so far.
Hey, Christena. As you said earlier, we've come a long way. The term brand is derived from a Germanic word that means to burn, harking back to a time when people were literally branding or marking their livestock to claim ownership, and later on to signify the origin and quality of goods produced by artisans. With the introduction of mass marketing, brands began to incorporate design elements like logos, fonts, and other aesthetic features as a way to drive greater differentiation. Consumers still looked at brands primarily as the representation of a commercial proposition, rather than a set of broader, potentially emotional attributes. The notion of brand personality as a set of human characteristics associated with a brand didn't appear until the late 1990s.
The development of brand personalities enables brands to reflect more abstract values and philosophies beyond a purely commercial proposition in order to better connect with consumers.
Exactly. Brands were showcasing their personalities in a one-directional fashion, simply projecting human traits through mass communications rather than fully expressing them through brand behaviors and dynamic interactions with consumers. Then digital technologies and social media stepped in and totally changed the game, allowing brands to not just act human-like, but interact and react human-like.
Thanks to social media, we evolved to a world where consumers could talk back to brands publicly, and those brands were faced with the need to interact with their consumers directly and on a daily basis. The emergence of digital technology and social media allowed for brand personalities to emerge in a greater number of environments and to manifest in more interactive ways.
That was critical because the digital revolution empowered consumers with both greater access to information and greater access to a larger choice of products and services coming into the market. With price and function becoming more of a commodity, spoiled for choice consumers ended up placing a much greater premium on the customer experience.
More products, more competitors, more information. That's a lot to sift through in order to make your brand stand out. So brands started using technology to their advantage to develop more human-like capabilities.
Right. The rise of big data and tech-enabled CRM allowed brands to develop a memory of interactions that enabled ever more personal ways for brands to connect and bond with consumers, to respond if they recognized and knew them. Think of it like getting a happy birthday email from your favorite coffee chain. And social media allowed brand personalities to manifest in new, more sophisticated ways through two-way communications, the fundamental human trait.
And react to moments in culture. It gave them new ways to flex their personality with identifiable voices and a sense of humor.
A great example of this is Wendy's Twitter account, infamous for provoking competitors and its sarcastic voice.
Well, I'm partial to the Duolingo owl.
Another great example.
Okay, so we know the metaverse opens up far more expansive playing field for brands. How do we see brands taking advantage of that?
To be honest, most brands for now seem to be dipping their toes into the metaverse by copying existing ways of connecting with consumers on analog and digital platforms and replicating those approaches in virtual environments. They'll advertise on virtual displays like brands do in Riot Games' League of Legends, or they'll open a digital storefront just like the ones we see in the real world. Balenciaga did this in Epic Games' Fortnite.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with these approaches. In fact, many of these have been very successful initiatives, but it feels like most brands have yet to unlock the full potential of virtual environments. So when brands are faced with the question, how should we show up in the metaverse? What should they consider?
In my opinion, the metaverse opens up the potential for brands to go beyond the current level of interaction enabled by digital and social media, and instead actively participate in social experiences with consumers, furthering the human character of brands by mimicking the patterns of human socialization. Brands can become an entity people socialize with. It's not just social in the sense of talking at, but in the more profound sense of being with and doing with.
Well, you mentioned the Wendy's sarcastic Twitter account. I imagine they wouldn't miss out on an opportunity to bring that attitude into the metaverse.
And you're right. In 2018, Wendy's hopped in on a Fortnite event that was a great example of the potential brands have in this space. At the time, Fortnite was launching Food Fight, with players competing on behalf of their favorite fictional digital restaurant in a Team Burger versus Team Pizza contest.
I'm guessing Wendy's joined Team Burger.
Actually, Wendy's discovered that Team Burger was storing its meat in a freezer and joined the contest to advertise its fresh, never frozen beef policy. They created a character that resembled their mascot and invited hundreds of thousands of players to join them on a quest to destroy the virtual freezers.
That's comedy.
It is. It was a true moment of socialization between a brand and consumers, as Wendy's was right there in the thick of it with consumers competing together and colluding to take down the freezers.
So how far can brands really take this human potential?
Well, recently some brands have started to work with CGI influencers like Luda Magalu and Little Michaela. Most virtual influencers up until now have been essentially CGI designed avatars, operated by their creators or marketers. There's been limited use of AI in the initial manufacturing of these personalities, which gives brands more control over the messaging when they tap these personas on social media. But all of that might change very soon, given the way that generative AIs like ChatGPT have been taking the internet by storm. And that might allow for a whole new level of autonomy for a brand's manifestation in the metaverse.
Sounds like a real breakthrough for brands in reaching a whole new level of humanity.
It really is. The next advancement for brands into the direction of being human-like in their interactions with consumers would be to pair a brand's virtual personification with Turing test level AIs. The Turing test is when a person socializing with an AI or an AI animated brand persona cannot tell if they're interacting with a computer program or a real-life person, like a digital community manager.
And what does that do for brands and for consumers?
It would mean that brand representations would evolve from running on predetermined tracks laid down by community managers and instead evolve into entities with varying degrees of agency, becoming more than just scripted avatars, but rather increasingly autonomous entities grounded in values, motivated by purpose, and capable of independent social interactions. This would allow for real-time, one-to-one responses to consumers, moments of socialization, and a level of consistency in interactions and behaviors that goes way beyond what businesses can deliver in terms of customer experiences today.
But we know that consumers value authenticity. Should this raise any red flags for brands?
Right now, every brand can incorporate aspects of virtual and AI reality into their marketing in a way that best suits them. Some brands might find it valuable to keep humans in their human connections, while others may opt for an entirely AI-driven approach. Ultimately, there's a spectrum of how much you can and should incorporate based on your brand's values and target consumers.
We do know that more than half of consumers say they'd want to know who is behind a virtual influencer they're interacting with. So it's important to keep in mind that transparency matters. The big question is, are we approaching some sci-fi territory of iRobot or Her?
Not quite yet, although the progress that is being made with generative AI is astounding. So this might not be as far off as we thought even a few months back. There's been a number of incidences where engineers working on generative AI have questioned whether AIs had reached a sentient state, but the consensus by companies working on the technology and the broader scientific community so far is that it is likely not the case, at least not yet. The final phase of humanizing brands could involve sentient and self-aware AIs that animate brand representations in the metaverse. The evolutionary journey of brands has been informed and driven by the notion and the desire of businesses wanting to create a better interface to connect with humans in more human ways. Therefore, perhaps the ultimate marketing superpower provided by AI and the metaverse will become the ability to cross the final threshold and bring brands alive and make them natively capable of socializing with consumers in this new reality, which is both exciting but also unsettling. It's the final frontier.
A brand's evolutionary journey has always been motivated by how brands grow deeper and more authentic connections with their consumers. In this new world, brands need to ask themselves, how can we go beyond our traditional tools of engagement? With so much new territory to explore, the Metaverse has the potential to help bring brands to life in a way that's never been done before. It's more than just entering a new environment with a new look. Brands have the opportunity to explore what they do and how they act, how they use AI to become more human instead of moving away from what is human. They can truly come to life in the Metaverse.